I wake up swamped in my light blue covers, rubbing my eyes as the bright sunlight hits them. I glance over at my clock, which is marked 8:05, and oh shit, I am gonna be late. Dashing off from the bed and quickly take a shower. As soon as I was finished, I dressed in a white plain t-shirt and partnered it down with denim blue pants and black Converse. I apply a powder and lilting to my bare face before I brush my hair and tie it into a neat bun that rested on top of my head. I exited my apartment and headed to the latte cafe where I work as a cashier. Once I arrived, I stride inside the shop and was greeted by a warm smile from my coworker. "Good morning, Anna." "Good morning, Jane," I respond. After I set my belongings in my locker, I help Jane to set up everything before the customer dashes in. While doing our chores, Mrs. Smith arrived at the shop with a profound countenance. "Miss Hansley, to my office now." She coldly states that I glance at Jane, but she just shrugged while having that confused face. So do I. As I followed Mrs. Smith upstairs to her office on the second floor. Every step I take gives me a thud in my chest. Sitting on the couch, she shortly throws a brown envelope on the table, containing full of pictures. My heart suddenly plumps a beat as I stare at the picture of me with Mr. Smith. "You are the mistress of my husband," she suddenly said with her gritted teeth. Looking at her with widened eyes, I deny her accusation. "And no, Mrs. Smith. I just help your husband to pick a gift for your birthday. He asks for my help. I do not believe in you. On my birthday, I never received jewelry from him. And it turns out that you are wearing a new necklace the next day. Do you think you can fool me? But I. Get out. Don't give me a bullshit explanation. I would never believe in your words. You're fired. And no. No, please. Mrs. Smith. I need a job right now. Please." I kneel in front of her, begging her not to fire me while clasping both of my palms. But she seizes my arm and yanks me out of the shop, throwing my things on the floor, with raging eyes darted on mine. Please, Mrs. Smith. I'm begging you." I pleaded, but instead, I received a smack with a loud thud on my right cheek. For a second, everything became faint as I stare at her, full of tears. "Leave. Or else I will throw you inside the prison." She angrily strode inside the shop, leaving me alone with no remorse. Crying about this situation, I state that I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not a mistress of her husband. I will never be. What did I do to deserve all of this? Wiping my tears, I reach out my things scattered on the ground. I shouldn't stand here and cry like a pathetic human being. As much as possible, I needed to find a new job. The employment office is quite near, so I sprint to the office. But then, I almost fell on the ground when I bumped into something hard. "Hey, watch where you going." He scowls. It's a man. In a state of shock, I saw how the coffee stain splattered on his clothes. And it's a goddamn white polo shirt. I immediately wipe his clothes using my pink hanky. "I'm so sorry." He just stood still there in front of me without any words. Why am I so clumsy? This coat looks expensive. What if he will ask for the laundry or buy him a new one? How can I pay him? "I'm sorry," I said again in a low tone, controlling my sobs as a pool of tears starts to fall through my eyes, which I abruptly wipes while sniffing that it's so embarrassing if he sees me. Looking so pathetic that I heard him sigh and hold my arms to cease what I am doing. But I lowered my head in embarrassment. He must be losing his patience now. Seeing his designer shoes, suitcase, and leather pants, maybe his shirt is also expensive. How can I pay him? I'm losing my mind here. He pauses for a second before I heard him sighing. "Just buy me a new coffee." Surprisingly, I lifted my head and meet his dark brown eyes. My cheeks suddenly warmed by his gentle stares looking down at mine. "Wait, coffee? Americano?" "Americano?" With a confused face, I nodded. "Oh, okay. That must be a good call, right?" We headed to the nearest coffee shop and ordered one Americano. Thank God, the coffee is not expensive. While waiting at the counter, I took a glance at him in the small room. He was sitting in the corner while staring outside, as if he was deep in thought that he was like a male character in a drama with those shiny shimmering effects around him. He looks dramatic, but staring at his masculine build with a tan complexion, a pointed nose, and a newly shaved beard around his mouth, he indeed has a strong sex appeal, totally handsome. His overall appearance screams wealth, but his deep brown eyes show differently. It looks empty. My deep thought was disturbed when the cashier handed me the coffee. I went straight to the table where he was waiting for me. I gave him his Americano. "Sit," he ordered. Sighing, I sit in front of him. I do not have any choice but to obey him, rather than pay for the damage to his shirt. However, after a moment of silence, he did not say anything. I glance at him as he is busy taking a sip of his coffee. Maybe he wants me here until he wraps up his drink. "Do you need money?" he suddenly asked. I abruptly darted at him. What's wrong with this man? "Yes, I need money." Does he think I intended to bump with him like a hoax woman for money? Sighing, I stood up and was ready to leave when he spoke again. "I have a job offer for you." I halted in my trance. "Job offer?" He looked serious. "If you are good with the job, I can give you more money." I doubted what he said. "I know you're hesitant to talk to a stranger like me, but..." He looked at his watch, then glanced back at me. "I can give you my card as your reference for my identity. I'm expecting you to accept my offer within this week." He places the business card on the table and rushes outside. I stare at his back while he was walking away until he strode inside the black sedan and faded out of my sight. Did I ask that for real? A job from a stranger? My eyes flickered to the mahogany table. The business card. I sighed. Do I look messy right now? Even a stranger noticed that I am not in good condition. *****. I entered our apartment only to find Mrs. Polly, The landlord with some men taking our stuff out of our apartment. Mrs. Polly, what are you doing? I run over to one of the big muscled men and grab the vase he was about to take out and put it back in its place. My mother and sister were standing at the door with tears welling up in their eyes. You can see that they are already struggling in this situation. Miss Hansley, you are running back on your rent. I already gave you 2 months to pay me. I'm sorry, Mrs. Polly, but we have nothing right now. I promise I would pay you soon. You said that 2 months ago too, Miss Hansley. I sigh in frustration as I run my hands through my hair. I know. Miss Hansley, I can't let you stay here any low dash. Give me until the end of this week, at least until we find somewhere to stay. I pleaded. I can't give you until this week's end, Miss Hansley. I will give you until tomorrow to leave this apartment this instant. But Mrs. Polly. No buts, Miss Hansley. She left the apartment with his men following her tracks. I glance at my mom and sister. They're smiling but with sad eyes. This situation is so hard to handle for them. How can I tell them about being jobless now? I wrap my arms around them to ease that everything is going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. I promise, Mom, Alice. I will find a way. Even saying those easing words, my mind was on a roller coaster of how to find a place as soon as possible. Tomorrow? How can we find a place tomorrow and pay all the debts? Right. That rich coffee guy. Take a rest for now, Mom. Alice, take her to her room. Alice nodded. Once they were gone, I searched my bag, looking for the business card from that wealthy man. There you go. Caleb Carter, CEO of Carter Enterprise? Is he that big time? I rushed to the Carter Enterprise building. The address is only walking distance from my apartment. When I arrived, I am still hesitant to step inside, but maybe that guy will really help me out of this mess. As I entered the building, I reach out to the receptionist. Is Mr. Caleb Carter working here? Yes, ma'am, he's the CEO of the Carter Enterprises. Can I see him? Do you have an appointment, ma'am? No. I'm sorry, ma'am. You can't see our CEO without setting an appointment, and his schedule is swamped, so maybe it's hard for you to reach him. Damn.